Welcome back to the 2023 ESPNW Women in Sports Summit presented by Toyota. We are live from beautiful Ojai, California. Please welcome our host, the one, the only, Elle Duncan.
Crowd goes wild. What's up, Ojai? How you guys doing? Eating? Feeling good? Yeah? I'm asking you to cheer with a mouthful of food. That was really smart on my part. Way to go, Elle. Good job. Hey, Aaliyah. She's right up front this time. I see you, girl. How great has day 2 been so far? Woo-woo! Good, and it's only about to get better because we still have so much ahead of us, guys. An amazing conversation and performance with Regina Spektor a little later today. Can't wait for Sarah Spain to sit down with her. Of course, we've got our breakout sessions. We've got our activities. I'm telling you, kickballs, loading, hiking, running, whatever you want to do, remember to go to the app. But I'm in particular excited for the next conversation that we're about to have. And so many of you have been so excited for this one as well. She's really one of those people that honestly doesn't really need an introduction, but I'll attempt to do one anyway. One of the most, not just decorated NBA player, WNBA players of all time, but athletes of all time. She's joining us straight from the Las Vegas Aces championship parade because, oh yeah, NBD, she just won another championship with her third team. She is a 3-time WNBA champion, 2-time MVP. She won a pair of titles in college, and you know what? Just for good measure, she decided, I'll go ahead and get a couple of Olympic gold medals as well. Needless to say, Candace Parker is just really trying to make an impact on her sport. So with that, Ojai, give the biggest welcome to the one, the only, Candace Parker. Hey, let's go. We told you, Candace. Hey. She's on to the next one.
Oh, that's perfect. I love that.
She's laughing because for any of you that have been to the summits, you know walk-up music is really important to me. I think it sets a tone, and so we did some research to see what your walk-up song should be, and we were told you're a big fan of Jay-Z.
I just, pretty big fan of Jay-Z. Love his lyrics and all of that.
We've had a couple of Jay-Z folks come up today. I just mentioned this, Candace. First of all, thanks for being here. You good?
Ugh. You're going to have to excuse my voice. It's definitely not from lack of sleep or champagne or anything like that.
Any of those things.
It's just, we have kids, so that's what
it is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just the kid gaze for sure. I was wondering if this segment should be sponsored by Tylenol or something. Really good.
Advil.
Yeah. Excedrin, you up? First woman in WNBA history to win a championship with 3 different teams. How do you receive that? When you hear that, what does that mean?
Well, I always feel like it's important to evolve and grow. And I think my first championship was the hardest thing I think I've ever had to do in my career. It was a 9-year drought. And coming from high school and college, it was like the expectation was just you win immediately, right? Back-to-back in high school, back-to-back in college. And then you get to the pros and there's this 9-year drought. And I think you doubt yourself. And then Chicago was just full circle. Thank you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Where are you from?
Sarah. And Chicago was just that full circle moment where the people that watched me first pick up the ball got to then watch us cut down the nets. And then in Vegas, it's a completely different dynamic because I do believe, I got hurt in July. And to be around that organization and to be around those type of people that really put the time and effort and energy into ensuring that they're prepared every single day, it inspired me. So I believe an old dog can learn new tricks. And so I was inspired by watching them and, being able to help in any way I could.
And inspired by their antics at the parade as well.
Oh,
I
my
feel
goodness.
like the Aces are known as, they're bringing it on the court and they're bringing it off it as well. Kelsey Plum. I mean, what right. What's that like being on this side of it, Candace?
Listen, it is, I'm 37 years old, so in life, probably not old. In basketball, yesterday, my teammate KB reminded me that she's 23 years old.
Perfect.
So then I realized that they're actually closer to my daughter's age than they are my age. And so at this point in my life, I'm just like, okay, so what are the lyrics to that song in the locker room? You know, I'm that person. And then at the parade, I was just like, oh, okay, like cigars, cool. Like, all right.
You guys need to hydrate.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm pulling out water bottles and things like that. So I'm definitely the mama or the grandma on the team for sure.
I love that you said that, by the way, to all the youngins. We absolutely love, as seasoned people, when you come up and tell us things like, I've been watching you since I was born.
Oh my gosh. No, but the worst is when they don't say you're their favorite player. You're my mom's favorite player.
Oh my gosh.
That's the worst. That is the absolute worst. When this kid at the parade said that to me yesterday, and I was just like, I didn't have anything to say. I have reached that point.
I've reached that point. My mom loves you. You're big. I love that you mentioned that. You said you've reached this point. It's really interesting. When I was sitting down to think about what I wanted to talk to you about, Candace, I was like, I really want to ask her what season she thinks she's in her life. Because I know from this vantage point, and as a fan, it feels like you're in a transformational season. Even just a few years ago, when you were at this summit, when you were on this stage at Pelican Hill, your life has changed so much. And I'm just interested what season you think that you're in.
I think I am in a season of, and I believe wholeheartedly, I know as cliche as this sounds, like super into learning from everything. And I think that the biggest misconception as you get older is you're the one that's always teaching and you're the one that's always, you know, giving direction. But I'm learning from my daughter. She's playing varsity as a freshman for volleyball. I'm learning from her. I'm learning from my teammates. I'm just in that season of like being okay with what's next. And I think to be able to be in that place, it's important for all of us to understand. Like, I think young coming into basketball, young coming into commentating, you're trying to control the next step. You're always trying to control, like, what's next, what's the transition. And I'm kind of at that point now where I'm just like, I'm gonna control what I can control and then just let it be. And so that's the place I'm at. You know, whether I play basketball for 2 or 3 more years or whether I don't pick up the ball again, I'm okay. And I think to be in that place is a solid place. I'm happy to be there.
It seems, as someone who hasn't even touched the greatness that you've touched, but as someone who's aspirational like a lot of these women here, that seems so counter to everything that we're taught, to sort of just let go and see what happens, right? Because you do have to be so calculated. To become one of the greatest basketball players of all time, you have to be calculated. To pivot and transition into broadcasting, which you're doing so incredibly well now, and it's not giving me any kind of feels at all. I'm like, Candace, stop coming for our jobs. Good God, woman. She's so good already. How hard was that to get to the point of sort of relinquishing a little bit of control?
Well, it's relinquishing the results. I think it's doing whatever you can to prepare to be in the best possible shape or best possible place, or, you know, whatever it is. It's going home tonight and, you know, telling my wife and kids that I have to do work. I have to watch LeBron play basketball from 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock on opening night tonight. I'm sorry, guys, I have to work and prepare. So it's like those type of things that you just do to prepare. And then from that moment, I feel like you're okay. There's been seasons where I've gone into the season and maybe I haven't been as in shape or didn't do what I was supposed to as much in the off season. And you have that regret. But the seasons that I've gone into and I've prepared and I've worked out and I have zero regrets, those are the ones I'm okay with. The last second shots, I mean, they hurt. But the last second shots, the results that don't necessarily work out, I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, relinquishing the results and just doing all you can to prepare for the moment.
I love that. And I love, too, that you mentioned that, you know, watching games is work. You know, I want you to tell my husband that because coincidentally, every time the baby needs his diaper changed, I've got to watch the football game. And he doesn't really
You have to, it's work.
He'll be like, you have to watch 2 winless teams on a Sunday at 1 o'clock. Yes, I do. So part of your evolution and growth and change is not just that you're a broadcaster, but also getting to production. You started your production company, Baby Hair Productions, the greatest name of all time, by the way, because anyone that knows Candace Parker is on the Mount Rushmore for baby hairs. But you're one of your first big projects. I know you did an amazing project last year surrounding Title IX, but one of your first big projects is about you. It's a documentary about your life that will be on ESPN. We've got tuned and said, yes, let's go. But it's called Unapologetic. Why did you choose that name?
It's so interesting because I think in this day and age, it's a little bit different surrounding athletes. Like, athletes are encouraged, and I feel like a lot of that was forged by previous athletes being unapologetic. And I think some athletes like myself had to learn to be that. And I have, and I will, and I've learned from being a parent, because I can't tell my daughter to be her, or to be who she is, or to follow her dreams, or to love who she loves, or to go and study what makes her happy if I'm not doing that. And so I think in this day and age, I've been inspired by the athletes around me that have encouraged me to be fully me and to be unapologetic about it. Because I think so many times, especially women, not just athletes, but women especially, you have to say, sorry is the word that, sorry. No, like, you don't have to be sorry about being you and doing what you love.
It's so funny whenever we talk at large about, pressure on young athletes and being in the spotlight, like as a zygote, we always talk about LeBron James. And I'm like, and then there is Candace Parker, who we have known and who has been a name in this sport for over 2 decades. And I'm just wondering, Candace, because I do want to get into some of the details of the documentary, which is so good, but after 20 years, what did you think was still left to reveal to people that you wanted to reveal with this documentary? Why give people this level of access?
I think it's so interesting. There's a clip, I'm not sure if we're going to show it, but there's a clip in there where I say, we've just come off the Chicago championship, and I say, first they love you, then they hate you, then they wait for what's next. And I think that that's so true of anything. Sitting on the stage yesterday was so humbling, because it's a different role and it's a different life than maybe the outside perceives it to be. The result is what we all wanted, but the way it happened was not necessarily how I envisioned it. And I think that that's kind of how maybe people have seen, the way that athletes live or conduct their life. Like, I'm literally dropping my daughter off, having a conference on the phone with her, driving to game 4 of the championship. Like, there's things like that it's the whole person. And yes, it is about stats. It is about, records and championships and things like that. That's super important. But it's also, I'm a mom first. I really, really, really mean that. And I think that that's what I hope this doc shows. And I kind of went around the way of answering your question, but I think being able to show that I'm a total athlete, and to kind of circle back on what you're saying about LeBron, the thing about entering into motherhood that I experienced that very few male athletes probably experience is when I'm on the road away from my kids, they're like, hey, who's taking care of your daughters? I'm like, nobody has asked him who's taking care of Bronny.
No.
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so it's this level of the difference at which we put female athletes. And I just wanted to show that, and I think ESPN has done a great job of doing that.
You should just start telling them, I just locked them in a cage and gave them plenty of food. They're fine. I want to go back to the beginning of the documentary, which, by the way, it's as if your parents knew one day you were going to be big, famous, and have a documentary. Honey, there is so much footage of young Candace, and I can tell you right now, this woman doesn't age, so drop the skincare routine. But I want to go back to the beginning, which was, you're in Naperville Central, and you're this sophomore, I believe, and you dunk in a game. What did your life look like after that seminal moment?
It was absolutely wild, because my initial desire to dunk was because we're super competitive in our house. Like, that's how I grew up. I grew up with 2 older brothers. They're 8 and 11 years older than me. And we were competitive, like to the last pork chop competitive. That's how we operated. I remember the time, date when I beat my brother in FIFA soccer, like on the remote, because for so long my remote wasn't plugged in, and when it finally was, beating him was monumental. So we were super competitive growing up, and with that, it was young Candace being competitive and wanting to beat her brothers at something, and they dunked at 16, so I wanted to dunk at 14, and that's kind of what sparked that interest. Like, I remember going to the park with my dad, dunking the tennis ball. Okay, then I'd switch to a volleyball. And then it was basketball. And then it was like, well, you can't really say you dunk unless you dunk in a game.
Right.
And I was like, all right. So after that, I didn't think it was a big deal other than bragging rights at my dinner table. And then we wake up and my lawn is like, there's TV cameras and there's people coming to all these games. And I'm looking at my dad like, you know, what's going on? I didn't think this was that big a deal. But I think the expectations in our household wasn't in regards to everybody else. Like my parents would always ask, whether it's basketball or whether it's grades you bring home, yeah, you got an A, but is it your best? Like that's a judgment on what everybody else is doing, and that's great, but is it the best you can do? And so I think that that's what kind of sparked, like the dunk kind of sparked the, okay, so women couldn't dunk before, girls couldn't dunk before, like, okay, so this is how society is. Like they put you in a box, and then they're like blown away when you don't fit in that box. And I want to be the one that doesn't fit in any of the boxes that society tries to put me in.
You recognize that at 14, Candace?
I mean, I think it's a little, retrospection.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no, at 14, I was super motivated to try to be the best, that I could be. And Elle, you probably, you're getting there. You have a 5 and 3-year-old, so you're probably getting there with this. But it's hard to, like my daughter isn't driven in that way, and that's okay. But at that age, you have to kind of lay down little markers and figure out what motivates them. And my parents knew exactly what motivated me was telling me I couldn't do something. And so to this day, like even Becky Hammond, she's like, oh, I figured you out. Like all I have to do is tell you, you cannot guard so-and-so. And you're gonna go, okay, I figured this out. And so Pat, same thing. Okay, I figured you out. And that is how I'm motivated.
I love that. It's a great lesson just in leadership, right? Is that everybody, and that's what we talk about with equity. It's like what everyone specifically needs to succeed and be their best and do their best. And that's the sign of a great leader, is someone that can identify that and figure that out. So you mentioned Pat, so I want to fast forward because now the Candace Parker hype train is in full steam ahead. She's dunking. She's the top prospect. You're going to go to Tennessee, a once incredibly proud, school and program that had a little bit of a dip before you came there. And then right away, your freshman year, what happens?
So I tore my ACL going into my freshman year. Doctor told me I couldn't do something. I came back and played in 5 months after I tore my ACL because I wanted to play my senior year of high school. So my knee was really messed up. And fast forward, I go into surgery. It was supposed to be meniscus, just to repair it. I went in and they were like, oh my goodness, you have like a hole. So you're bone on bone in your knee at 18 years old, something that we have to fix. There's a surgery, it's new, called femoral condyle resurfacing. But it's 12 weeks non-weight bearing. It's, 6 to 12 month recovery. So my freshman year, I had to redshirt. And if anybody knew me at that point in time, basketball was everything to me. And so with that being said, freshman year, moving away from home, it was really tough, I think, because the basketball court was my solace. That's where I went anytime anything went wrong. I mean, my mom had to beg me to go to prom because I was going to miss a basketball tournament. That I just ate, slept, breathed basketball. And so that year was really tough. But that's where Coach and I got real close. Coach Summit and I mean, she took me under her wing. I remember walking by her office and she was knowing I was struggling, but I'm kind of internal. So when I'm going through stuff, I kind of go internal. And so she was like, hey, not saying you have to talk, not saying you have to do anything, but I want you to come eat lunch in here. You can just sit over there and do homework on my couch. And so every Wednesday I would go into Coach Summit's office, and then little by little I started talking, and we just clicked, and she just became like a second mom to me.
Because the first year was so incredibly hard for you, you pondered quitting. You were like, I don't think I want to do this.
Yep.
Which, for the ultimate competitor, for someone that, wanted to accomplish great things, when you look back on that time, Pat's what kept you there. That's why you wanted to stay?
Pat is what kept me there, but also anytime I would call home and tell my dad especially that I wanted to quit, he would hang up the phone. I couldn't even get He would be like, Parkers don't quit. And he'd hang up the phone. But you also talk about seasons of life, and I think sometimes you have to let the season roll on, right? And you have to dig a little deeper, and you have to just stay a little bit. Like, you have to trust. I'm big, listen, you're gonna get to it, but later in my career, I had to move on. And that's okay, but you have to try it first. And, you know, the first time something gets tough, you can't leave, and you can't run, and you can't quit. And so I'm super grateful for Coach Summit. I'm super grateful for my dad not allowing me to finish the word quit. And, you know, super grateful for my circle, because I think I leaned on my circle a lot.
You're right. Sometimes the best way through something is to keep going, right? There's a really great moment in the documentary where you talk about, you know, you're back, you're healthy.
Yep.
Candace Parker is living up to all the hype, like she's doing her thing, and you were going to have a homecoming. You were going to go back to Chicago, you were going to play DePaul, and you were really excited. It was New Year's. Your fiance, Sheldon Williams, former basketball player at the time, you guys are kicking it. You missed curfew. You not even missed curfew. You kind of just were like, what? You were like, I'm not going to be here.
I'm in Chicago, I'm home, I'm 21 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 21.
I'm grown.
Years old.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna do what
that's
I
how it
want.
was.
And what did
That
Pat
didn't
do?
end well.
Yeah, what'd she do?
It didn't end well at all.
What'd she do?
So honestly, went out in Chicago, actually checked back in for curfew, right? Smart, checked in for curfew. And then my fiance was staying in the same hotel we were. So I was like at the grad assistant checking us in, like deuces, you know, like going to the elevator, didn't think anything of it. And then about like 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings and Sheldon picks it up and is like, yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. She's right here, ma'am. Yes. And then he hangs up and I'm like, you just sold me out. Like you couldn't even just like tread water for a second? Like,
try.
What is going on? And he's like, I'm not lying to Pat. Like, I'm not crazy. So anyway, yeah, I got benched at home. We literally played DePaul for me. And I got benched at home. However, coach she understood she had, she owed something to the fans that did show up to see me play. So she said, I'm gonna bench you, but she said if you cheer and you do and you're a great teammate, whatever, I might play you in the second half. So she did. She held up to her word, and I was able to go in there and play in the second half. But boy, listen, SportsCenter had a field day with that, showing all my family in shirts, waiting for me to get on the. I blame ESPN for that. I blame ESPN for that.
It's like the saddest shot. It's just in the documentary, you just see like Candace is sitting on the bench, and there's just all these fans with their Candace Parker shirts. But what did, not just that moment, but in general, what did Pat teach you about accountability?
So I'm gonna give you all some homework because I think it needs to have some life brought back into it. Her definite dozen policies and principles are something that I, to this day, live by. It's in her 3 books, but if you just Google, there's a leadership program, and her definite dozens aren't just about basketball, it's really about life as well. And one of the definite dozens, well, there's 2 that she would always give me. Discipline yourself so no one else has to. So when you get to that point where you're able to discipline yourself, whether it's, hey, I'm setting an alarm to get up and ride my Peloton tomorrow, and then I hit snooze, hit snooze. Like, when you say you're gonna do something, you follow through. Because guess what? If I was gonna go meet a trainer at 7 o'clock in the morning, then I probably would get up and do it. Mm-hmm. But like, why don't we hold ourselves to that accountability as well? And so Coach Summit was big on disciplining yourself. And handle success as you handle failure. That's another one. Every year I got to Tennessee, we all got assigned definite dozen principles. From my freshman year to my senior year, that was mine. It was handle success as you handle failure. And it might be opposite to what you think, because I think sometimes people are like, oh, you gloat, or she's talking about like making sure that you're staying humble. No, sometimes it's not beating yourself up when you're not successful. Sometimes it's giving yourself a little grace and understanding that things take time and that failure isn't cliche, but final. Like, you can come back from that. And so, Coach Summit, man, I promise you guys will not be disappointed if you look up and you really research the definite dozen.
When do her words resonate in your head the most?
To me, I think the biggest thing, I'm learning, especially parenting this generation, it's not in words, it's in action. I don't know how you grew up. I grew up as do as I say, not as I do.
Yes.
A lot of times.
Yes.
Right? In this generation, that doesn't work. And so my daughter is like, you know, she's crying after a board game. She lost her cousins. I'm like, yo, we don't cry. She's like, but you did. I'm like, what? Hold on. That was different. That was the Western Conference Finals. We lost on the last second shot. That's so different than you losing at Monopoly. You know? But they're watching exactly what you do. And for me, Coach Summit, I got kicked out of practice one time. I wasn't busting my butt the way I was supposed to. So she told me, Parker, get out. I could still hear her voice. Get out. Whatever. So I was just like walking in the locker room like, what do I do? I don't know. Like, do I sit here? Do I shower? Like, do I go back out there? What do I do? Sat in the locker room. So I was like, okay, tomorrow we have 8 a.m. practice. I'm going to get up and I'm going to be in a full sweat. You know, or no, we had 6 a.m. practice. I'm going to get up. I'm going to be here at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get shots up. I'm going to be in a full sweat. I'm going to do all this stuff. Get in my car, pull up to the gym. Whose light is in office is on?
Bet.
Right?
Yep.
And so to me, I think that's what I'm reminded by. Like, she'd won 7 championships at that point, and she's still doing the little things that got her there. And so every time I'm like tired, or every time I feel like I can hear, you've never arrived. You've never arrived. Like, you haven't. You've never arrived. Like, you're always going to something. So you're always working to something. So what got you there isn't going to be what keeps you there. And so with Coach Summit, like, that story has more in how I operate, how I am as a teammate, how I am as a wife, like as a mother, whatever. That's the story that I'll always remember about her.
Love that. You mentioned the mother part. I think that's what's really cool about this documentary too, is that, you know, people that know you and in your circles and certainly in the basketball world have seen you as a wife and mother. And this, I think, is a chance for a lot of people to see that, because the doc is really centered around that part. But before we show you a brief excerpt, I just do want to give a big shout out to Google, who is a proud supporter of women, and for the last 4 years have focused specifically on opportunities to invest in women's sports through partnerships, media strategies, as well as ensuring experiences on Google products that are equitable for all genders. Google's media collaborators, ESPN, and other platforms have actually brought over 300 hours of additional women's sports content to air since 2020. That includes more broadcast matches for the FIBA Women's 2022 Tournament, UEFA Women's Champions League, and of course, the WNBA, as well as increased coverage by female journalists at the Women's World Cup 2023. Now, in their 3rd year of partnership with us here at the espnW Summit, Google still committed to helping both current and future fans discover, access, and learn even more about women's sports, athletes, and of course, their stories, which is why I'm so excited that Google is bringing us this excerpt from Unapologetic that really centers around you as a mother. Take a look.
Layla went everywhere with me, and I don't think my team, wherever I played, would want me without her. We used to always say we're a team, right? Ray, where are we going?
Tianjin.
What country is that?
China.
What I remember, I just wanted to be with my parents, and I wanted to be with my family, and I wanted to have fun, and that's what I tried to do for Layla. Her fun just happened to take place in an airport in Istanbul, Turkey, or her crawling at an away game at EuroLeague, or her trying potatoes for the first time in Spain. I think it's been amazing because her playground has literally been the world.
Am I holding the big Buddha?
Nowhere near it.
You're gonna make me cry. You guys are up here.
What do you? I see that you're getting. I see that you're getting emotional while you watch it. What were you thinking?
No, it's true. I think the London Olympics, she was 3 years old. And after we got back, I was dropping her off at preschool and her backpack was like mad heavy. And so I was like, what could possibly be in here? Like, normally it's just like pieces of paper, right? That you act like you hang on the refrigerator and then you're just like, you know. So I pick it up and it's my gold medal like in her backpack. And so I'm like, okay, I know it's show and tell, dude, but like you can't take the gold medal to school. And she's like, but we won. Like we won. And that's how Layla Nicole has always thought, and that just brings me so much happiness that I was able to like experience the world with her and continue to do so. And you know, that she's proud of me and like she wants to continue to hang out and wants to, you know, be a part of this. So all the decisions we make together. We got to check the checklist off, and that was one of the things Vegas said was like, we knew we had Layla on board, so we knew you were gonna come to Vegas. But my kids are my everything, my family's my everything, and I'm so grateful that they allow me to chase my dreams. You know, there's power in that.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful for them.
I always get really sometimes hesitant. You just mentioned it earlier when we were talking, Candace, about the idea that, like, if LeBron was sitting up here right now, I would not be talking to LeBron James about family planning. I wouldn't. But the truth is that we are unique in that situation, and you are unique in your aspirations. And you have this amazing rookie year in the WNBA, your rookie of the year. You are exceeding all expectation, and then you get pregnant before your second year. And you talk a lot in the documentary about what that was like, the advice that you gave. I won't give any of that away. But you have your daughter, and you come back 53 days after you gave birth. And I always ask mothers this, and I just want to be real with you. I can never tell, is that unfair? Is that helpful? Is that detrimental to the rest of us? That a boss can look at me and go, Candace Parker came back to this level after 52 days, you for sure can get your ass back on that desk, right? And I don't know if there's a right answer. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder, when you sort of introspect, does it feel like it was all too soon, too much?
I was 23. I had just come off of Rookie of the Year MVP. The pregnancy was a surprise to a lot of people. And so I just wanted to do everything I could to get back to what I knew, right? I ate, slept, breathed basketball. And I wanted to do that along with not shortcutting motherhood. So my daughter came with me. Now, I guess the question I would ask bosses are, if I do come back to work, can I bring my child everywhere with me? Because I was fortunate to be able to do that. If I then had to leave my child at home, I don't think I would have done that. And so I think it's a little different. Like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You know, I look at motherhood like this. We look at athletes because it is our bodies, and we're playing at some of the highest levels and things like that. But we're fortunate to be able to bring I can sit my child in her car seat, and she can watch practice and be there and be involved and be on planes and things like that. Corporate America, you can't do that.
Right.
And so I think that there's differences, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's what you want and what you desire. Just like a birth plan, just like parenting, it's not one-size-fits-all. So listen, 37, I just said my age. 37-year-old Candace Parker probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Right?
But at 23, that's what I wanted at the time. And so I was grateful to be able to have the support of my family and the organization to be able to do that.
And I wonder, though, because you, despite still having a unique circumstance where you could take your daughter with you everywhere, you mentioned in the documentary maybe the number one word that at least I hear from most moms, and I'm a mom too, and that's guilt. You brought that up. We all face the guilt. Some of you are in this crowd right now having a great time sipping on your lavender lemonade, fanning yourself, feeling real guilty because your kid's doing something and you're not there. And I just wonder, any advice for career women who are like you, aspirational, have goals, also family focused, on how they figure that aspect out?
Listen, it is a constant figuring out. It really is. And
did you feel more informed after 13 years when you had Elle?
So here's the thing.
Okay.
When she was little, I feel like babies, you know, you miss them more than they actually miss you, right? Like,
true.
They're kind of just like, feed me, change me, put me to sleep. Like, that's it. At 3 or 4 years old, when I yanked Layla out of preschool and took her overseas to be enrolled in a Russian preschool and, you know, leave her friends and things like that, that's where I felt guilt from that element. But I'm a better mom when I'm a whole being. And I think we have to let go of what we envision motherhood and things to be, and how that journey looks for everybody. And so I think sometimes it's just about just doing the best that you can, being where your feet are. So when you make a decision, not beating yourself up, you know, I'm gonna grab the fan and fan myself. My 2 kids are at home. They are well taken care of right now. My wife and I are here. We are enjoying ourselves. This is beautiful. We might come back here.
Yeah. Should.
I think it honestly is giving yourself grace. And, you know, when I am home, I am home. I am all about my family. I'm gonna make everything. A CEO actually gave me advice because I was having a difficulty staying overnight away from my daughter. And she said you should make a sleep calendar, and every night when you get on FaceTime, she makes you one, you make her one, and you guys cross it out at night. And that was something that like we looked forward to, and she got excited about. So I think there's little things that you can do to stay connected. I'm a big note writer, so I'll write notes, you know, and leave them places or surprises or whatever, to make her feel like I'm still part of it and I want to be there, because she knows that anytime I can be there, I'm going to be there.
We all do a little overcompensating. I do like pancake art.
You do pancake? Do you do colors? Are you colors? Yeah.
I mix
colors.
12 different colors.
Yep.
It takes 4 hours.
Yep.
You guys, it's so
See.
inefficient. I don't know
Yeah.
why I did it.
But you know what? They're going to remember that when they grow up.
I
like a
hope
core
so.
memory. They're going to remember that. They're going to be like,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Although, you know, when they're very young, they don't remember anything. So I'm kind of just like not really trying that hard until they start building memories. Shout out, you mentioned your wife, Anya's here. Where's Anya? There she is. I did ask if Baby Air was going to be making an appearance.
Ooh, Baby Air would be,
Yeah.
I don't know what
Wilding
he would
out.
be. Yeah, he'd be knocking over something.
What was that like sharing, in the documentary, sharing the journey of you and Anya falling in love and starting your family, something that your circle knew about, but nobody else did, and you make this, you know, where the cameras are with you and you announce this. I remember when you posted that and the pictures of your wedding, and also announced that you were having a baby kind of all at once. What was that experience like for you?
I think the biggest, so the comment that made me chuckle underneath the post was, you know, I need Adele and Candace's circle, basically, like, because my circle, I mean, we had a whole wedding. My agent's over there, like, he wanted everybody like, oh, we got it. I'm like, no, my people are not going to say anything. They're not going to post. They're going to keep this private, and they're going to respect what we want. And I'm just grateful for my circle, because I think sometimes it's a journey within yourself as well. It's a journey with, you know, who you are, what you want to be, who you want to love, what your plans are. And, you know, I was fortunate to be able to do it on our terms. My family is, like I said, the most important thing to me. And the biggest thing is Layla Layla loves her bonus mom. Like, I could not have scripted a better situation. And I don't ever want my daughter Layla or my son Air to ever think that I am embarrassed or don't love their mom. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. And so I think in conversations with Anya and with our family, you know, we were welcoming another kid into the world, and we wanted everyone to know, you know? And so I think it was an amazing process, because it's some of those things where we're looking at each other maybe a week or at the parade, and in the Chicago parade, like, not everybody knew that we were together. And so this parade, we were just like, wow, this is kind of monumental a little bit, you know? And so I think sometimes when you step out on, you know, belief and what you want and authenticity, you know, it's surprising, because whatever the results are, I think it's going to be positive for you, because you're able to then, you know, live the way that you want to live.
You're into that. Before we close, I talk about this a lot, and I think you know, again, Candace, you were one of the first transcendental athletes for women, incredibly good at what you did, stunningly beautiful, very marketable, all of these things. And I don't think people. I was talking with LaChina Robinson about this. She's like, I just don't think people know. Like, Candace shouldn't be here. Like, she had 8 surgeries on your knee alone, surgeries on your foot, on your shoulder. Your body has tried many times to keep you down. And here you are, one of the most decorated athletes of all time. And we hear a lot of things and expressions in sports, but she said something after she won the title with Chicago that has stuck to my ribs. she said it, and I have said it in my head time and time again in the couple of years since. And I just want to remind everybody, because I believe, Andy, we've got the video of that, just to remind people what Candace said after she leaves LA, she comes back home to Chicago, and she wins a championship, brings them their first title. This is what she said.
I think sometimes you don't have to tell your story, time will. And I think that, like, that's something that I've lived by. And I think everybody up here has had that moment where they felt like they have to tell their side of the story. And you don't have to. Like, just put your head down, continue to work, do what's right, be a good person, work hard, give energy, and like the world will give back to you. So I think that's my message with all of this is like, you don't have to yell from the rooftops who you are, what you do. Like, let time tell, and just enjoy the moment.
And then the mic. Layla had you crying. That had me crying in my room. I'm not going to lie. What do you hope over time that time will reveal about your story?
You know, I think the biggest thing is it's the opportunity element, to be honest with you. I want to go outside of myself a little bit and say that the opportunity of what sports has done, a platform has done, and what like the people believing in you. You know, I'm nothing without the belief of my parents and my brothers and my family. My wife the other day after my second snooze and my alarm was like, I'm proud of you, when I got up to go do the Peloton. Like, that just means the world to me. And when my daughter, you know, does her spike and she looks up and sees me in the stands, like, it's bigger than, I don't know, it's bigger than everything. I think sometimes we get so zoned in on one element and one aspect of life, and we forget about how beautiful other parts of your life are. And I think for me personally, you know, time has told that story that we are so much more than just sports. You know, what I hope to do to bring awareness to how crucial women are in every room and how important it is to have diversity in thought and leadership. But also, I think it's important to continue to strive to be yourself. And sometimes that changes. Like, who you are at 23 is way different than who you're gonna be at 37, and it's okay. And so I know I kind of went all over the place. But, you know, I think you asked me about Jay-Z, and LaChina knows this. Like, I love his lyrics, but I love how he's transcended the way that we think about what rappers are capable of. Mm-hmm. And that's what I hope to do for women's basketball players is I always came in saying I wanted to be like the Magic Johnson of women's basketball. And not in the sense of winning championships. Yes, I want to win 5, but more so in the business element. Like, I want to be that business leader, that business thought. Like, I want to do that. And so that's what I hope to do. And I hope at some point there's more of that, where there's women that walk into rooms and you see a lot of us, doing what we love and following that path.
I think that there is no greater indicator of your story than one of the most generational talents we've seen in some time in college basketball, Aaliyah Boston, winning her first national championship. And the first thing she did when she got that mic was shout out Candace Parker in the crowd. That was a beautiful
moment. And Elle, wait, I have to pause you on this.
Yeah.
My daughter is the biggest Aaliyah Boston. Okay?
I'm with her. Look at that. That's her shouting her out.
That's amazing.
I love you.
That
it was
amazing.
Just what, like, God, of everything that you've done, all the work that you've put in, the rehab, the surgeries.
Look at my mom. My mom is hype. My mom's the biggest Aaliyah Boston fan. I think she likes Aaliyah more than watching me play. My mom loves watching Aaliyah ball.
Like, everything that you've done, to see in her biggest moment, her look for you.
That means a lot, honestly. It really does. It really does. And I think the biggest thing for me is to see young women athletes taking advantage of the platform that they have and doing it in the way that Aaliyah does it, the way that she carries herself, the family that she comes from. She's a beast. I've guarded her. That's how I know my time is coming. She's a beast in the paint, but she steps outside the lines, and she's about family, She's about uplifting others. I think the biggest thing, and I'll say this, handle yourself in success as you handle yourself in failure. My biggest thing is everything is great when you're winning championships, but what happens when you're not?
Yeah.
And what happens when people say things about you in social media, or you don't win the championship and you come to make excuses? She never has done that. And I think that's the respect that I have for her. And, you know, she's inspiring that next young girl that wants to be herself and, you know, wants to be like Aaliyah Boston. And that's my daughter, by the way.
Yes, there you go. It's all a chain. I love
It
that.
is.
Do you ever tell her, like, by the way, the woman that you love was inspired by Yo Mama? Candace Parker, remember, guys, to check out the premiere of Candace Unapologetic. It's Sunday, November 12th, 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Right away, it'll be streaming on ESPN+. You definitely want to stay for the part. A little bit of a Freudian slip at your wedding, which, listen, there's lots of tears in the documentary, but that part had me crying, laughing. That's a tease, folks. Thank you so much, Candace Parker, for your time, for your words, for your efforts, and for just being a source of so much inspiration to us all. Candace Parker, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Candace. I'm so sweaty.
Oh
you don't
my
have to
gosh,
hug me
I am
if you don't
too.
want.
Elle,
It's not
seriously,
great.
I
Oh,
mean it. You are
you're the best.
unbelievable.
Thank you
I
so much,
appreciate you.
Candace. Can we like play her out with Jay-Z or something? Or like, on to the next one. It's actually kind of perfect because we are on to the next panel, actually. As you fan yourself, you can get a quick drink. But I do want to bring on our next panel, which is going to be an incredible conversation about inclusion. Very excited about this one. Our Vice President of Women's Sports Programming and ESPNW, Susie Piotrkowski.
How we doing? How we doing? Sweating, hydrating? We good? Okay. Our next panel, the evolution of the LGBTQ plus community in sport, is one whose weight is particularly personal. As a member of the community, as a queer person, and most notably a queer mother, I am highly aware of both the privilege and responsibility I carry when it comes to representation. During a time that has felt a bit more polarizing, a bit more dangerous to my community, this space is safe. It is not lost on me that this panel will feature 3 trans non-binary people. This may be some of your very first times hearing directly from trans people and trans athletes whose lived experiences are different than our own. And that is what we hope will allow us all to leave Ojai a little bit better. With that, this panelist is the first out trans and non-binary player in WNBA history. Please welcome to the stage WNBA All-Star and 2-term WNBPA Vice President, Layshia Clarendon. Layshia uses he, they, and she pronouns. Our final panelist is the first openly non-binary runner to win a USA Track and Field Championship title. Please welcome to the stage 4-time USATF National Champion, 7-time NCAA All-American, Pan American Games gold medalist, and American record holder in the mile, Nikki Hiltz. Nikki is a trans, non-binary, and uses they, them pronouns. And our panel host for today is the recipient of the 2023 Human Rights Campaign Visibility Award. You may recognize them for performances on Grey's Anatomy, Work in Progress, and Trill. Please welcome to the stage activist and president of Fightmaster Industries, ER Fightmaster, and ER uses they, them pronouns.
Oh, wow.
Doctor.
Wow.
Doctor.
That's nice.
All right. You guys do the damn thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate you.
Mics are on now. Yep. We're here.
Mics are on now. Perfect. When they asked me to do this, I was like, just make sure that you do it at kind of like high noon. The sun kind of as close to the earth as it can possibly be. And maybe I'll wear all black so that no one else can complain.
Let me keep them on.
And that's actually the queer agenda, is getting you all to sweat today. Y'all, I'm so excited to be here with you talking about this stuff. I'm a big fan of both of yours. I'm going to ask you a super basic question to get us started. Where are you from? And when did you start your sports journey?
Ooh, okay. I'm from San Bernardino, California.
Awesome.
And I started my sports journey as early as I could remember. My older sister played basketball, so by the time she's 5 years older than me, it was one of those stories of like, I don't remember ever being handed the ball. It just was like always a part of my life from a pretty young age.
Is she mad that you're better?
I think so. Yeah.
That's good.
That was definitely my motivation as the second sibling, was just like be better than my sister. She went to Pepperdine University, shout out, great university, but I was like, I'm gonna go to a better school, so I went to Berkeley.
Oh, that's fun. Nikki, what about you?
I'm from Santa Cruz, California, and my sports journey started on the beaches in Santa Cruz County. I did this program called Junior Lifeguards, where it's just a bunch of little kids dressed up in red bathing suits, and you swim and run and play on the beach all summer with all your friends. And it's, yeah, I feel like it's where I realized I was really good at running and really enjoyed running. And yeah, I started it when I was 7 and did it every single summer until I was 17. So yeah, great for any Californians that know junior guards. It's a very specific thing, but yeah, it's kind of how I got my start.
Well, have you ever saved anybody?
No.
Some kind of program that is. Okay, do you remember then in like when you started playing sports, do you remember the point at which you knew kind of like that you were queer? And do you remember the first person that you told?
Yeah, I mean, I just love the word queer because I feel like it's like this word that the LGBTQ community has really reclaimed, but like the original definition is like, I think it's something like strange or different, which, yeah, like when I think about, you know, junior guards, for example, that like I was different. I knew that from the start. So basically, like I said, it's everyone in red bathing suits pretending to be little lifeguards. And I remember being 7 years old and I didn't want to wear like the 1-piece or 2-piece that like the little girls were wearing. I wanted to wear like the board shorts like what the guys were wearing. And so I remember going to like the O'Neill surf shop with my mom, and there's like, you know, this back section that's like junior guard bathing suits, and I picked out the red board shorts and then a rash guard, which is like a shirt that surfers wear, you know, to protect from the sun. Would be great right now. And I remember holding these 2 things up and being like, Mom, can I wear this, like, if I do guards? And she was like, of course you can. And so, you know, then my little 7-year-old self, like, walked onto the beach that first day, and I looked so different than, you know, everyone else, but I was just like, I'm myself, and I'm happy to be here. And then, you know, I had the time of my life the next 10 summers. And so I feel like that, like, from the start, I've been queer, right? Or I've been different or othered. But, like, yeah, I just feel like I made a space for myself on that beach when I, like, didn't see a space for me.
That's cool. Good work on Mom, too.
Shout out parents.
Yeah, exactly.
That's huge. Similarly to you, I remember like being pretty young and just that word like different. Like we've come so far in the I'm 32, so years of being from middle school to like the language we have now and the words we have to identify ourselves. So back then when I'm in middle school, I'm not gonna do the math, but like we weren't having these conversations. They weren't normalized. So I just knew like I'm definitely different, but I didn't know like I'm gay, I'm queer, I'm something, I'm trans, I'm non-binary. It's just like I'm just kind of different, and like I kind of like hanging out with my girlfriends like more than friends, right? You have those like feelings, and also like for gender-wise, it was the getting out of the shower and putting the towel around my waist only, not wanting to like wear it up here. So I was emulating my dad in certain ways of like, and my parents, God bless them, different than yours, they weren't quite as I think prepared to embrace that. I mean, they embraced me as a tomboy, which I think we get some freedom, right? In sports, we all do, a lot of us as women, particularly, that men actually do not get. They do not get the space to be like a tom girl. There's no such thing for men. And I think that's a really interesting point and topic for probably another day. But I had the space to be a tomboy. So basketball was like my safe haven where I could wear the sweats, I could wear the oversized clothes, I could wear the spandex until you reach a certain age, right? You hit that middle school age where it's like, okay, you need to start dressing like a young lady. And I vividly remember being at the store with my dad, and he's always joked that I was his son because he wanted a daughter and a son, and I have an older sister. So then I came, and now I have a younger brother. So I'm like, you literally got 1.5. Like you got a daughter, a son, and like me in the middle who's both. But at the store, a woman we were checking out said something about your son, And that was like the click moment for me where he was like, oh, and he like kind of looked at me. He didn't say anything. And we just like checked out. And then from that point on, he kind of made these nods where he was like, maybe you should wear some earrings, or like, that was that moment for me where I was like, this isn't okay anymore. Like, I need to grow out of this phase. And I was never allowed to like shop in the men's section or boys section for actual clothes. Sports clothes were okay, right? Like, that's different. You're a hooper, you're a baller, that's acceptable. But like for actual like outfits, like I would have wore this outfit, I would have been so cute growing up, but it was like fitting myself in these, which is funny because now I'm wearing girl clothes again. But at the time, I was like wanting to dress very masculine and just not having that space to do that. But sports was that safe haven for me.
I think that's a great way to put it. Safe haven, safe haven is the word that I would use. Like when I was growing up, I didn't have to deal with this this constant talk about gender identity because I was always wearing sweats, and I wore slides actually to prom. I know. I would never show y'all that photo. But it was like a time in, I think sports become such a safe haven, especially for queer kids that can't see themselves yet, because you are wearing this clothing that you don't have to assign gender to. It's a really neutral space. That being said, do you remember the first queer person that you saw in sports where you were like, oh, maybe that's me, or you saw yourself through them?
Mine was Simone Augustus.
Oh,
like, yes. Who said, what was that, my wife? Yeah. It was Simone Augustus, WNBA legend. I'm sure everyone, I hope God, everybody knows who that is. Simone was the first, and as far as I know, Simone is just a cis woman who like dressed masculine, is a queer person. It was actually when she married her wife at the time, and they had the Players Tribune cover issue where they just like had photos, and Simone's in the suit. Simone has dreads. She's got beautiful tattoos on her arms. Like, she was like the masculine person that I saw in our league who was one out, because the history of the WNBA, like if you look at where we are right now, but look at even the last 10 years and how much we've grown, and Simone was drafted, I think, in 2006. So if you went 10 years back behind that, like we were not out. It was not an okay thing in our league to have players to be out. And so seeing Simone as this black woman who like was so black and so beautiful and so masculine in ways where I just saw myself like, that's me. And then I had questions like, well, why isn't Simone marketed the way she should be? Like, Simone Augustus is a fucking legend. Like, she should have been. It makes me emotional because like I very much like stand on her shoulders. And I don't think I've actually ever told her that. Like, it makes me want to go like call her when I get off the phone. Like, I've got to play with her at USA and I fangirled over her that way, but to just know that she is the person that I saw and I was like, that's me. And like how beautiful that is and how important that is to see yourself as a queer black woman who's masculine, who's just like taking up space and balling out,
and
like
balling
on
out.
Team USA.
And such
like,
a
that's
leader.
And Simone was doing that like before today. Like, think of her career. She retired in 2020, but before that, when she won 4 championships with the Minnesota Lynx, like, she should have been heralded. She should have been marketed in a way that we still owe her because she's a black woman, because she was masculine. She was not given those same opportunities and deemed beautiful and sexy and gorgeous, because we still, I think, don't quite market those black women in the correct way and give them as much space, but particularly as a queer black masculine woman, like, she paved the way for me that I don't think I would be here if I didn't get to see her.
Okay, we'll FaceTime her after this.
Okay, thank you.
Nikki, what about you?
Well, I actually do get to tell my Simone because Layshia is mine. And yeah, I just want to make everyone cry. No. No, I'm serious. Like, you obviously have those like queer icons like Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird, and like that was such great representation when it came to like my sexuality and like being out about that in sports. But like, I didn't see like a non-binary person in sports. Like, Layshia's the first one that I was like, oh my gosh, like a person competing in the women's category, but wants to use pronouns other than just she, her. And I was like, that's me. And like, I'm like, I know like Layshia's like the first in your sport. And I'm like, maybe like I can be the first in mine, you know? And it was like this really, really powerful thing when I first, heard about you. And yeah, I feel like I just read like every article possible and like was just consuming like, because I just was so desperate for that representation. Yeah. So thank you.
You both are gonna have the distinct privilege of being that for a lot of people coming up. And I think that, women's sports were not televised when I was growing up the way that they are now. And so the representation that you guys are able to provide by being these non-binary, these trans figures, and these sports that are now getting the credit they deserve, I'm really excited for young people to see that. Do you think that queerness, like your relationship with it, has impacted your sports persona? Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, you can't like you can't separate it, right? It's like a part of yourself. I can't show up to the start line not bringing my queerness to it because it's who I am. So it's like, you know, especially like being non-binary and using they them pronouns. It's like it's a constant like, I don't know how to say this, but like I have a really safe bubble in Flagstaff, Arizona, where I live and train. Like my coach, my partner, like my training partners, they all use they them pronouns, right? Like they're my people, and they're like, you know, track and field's a very individual sport, but like behind every individual you have a team, and like that's my team is like, you know, my people. And like so when I go to a track meet, it's almost jarring because it's like, you know, some people like forget, or like, you know, I'm just constantly getting misgendered by like the, you know, the guy that shoots the gun right before the race, or like, you know, other agents or other coaches, or even some competitors sometimes. And it's this like jarring, like, it's like, it is my safe space, but then it's like kind of a reminder of like, oh, it's not. And so it's been really hard and tricky to navigate. And like, yeah, but I think leaning into like my people has really helped in the sense of like, we can so quickly like spiral, or like if I ever want to read a comment that's like, you know, oh, look, a man competing against women, or like you're taking away spots from women, or just like I can so easily go find that. But like but I'm like that's why I'm like to my team, I'm like, I need your help, and I need like not just my team's help, I need women's help. Like, you know, I'm in this space, in this sport, and like I do feel so much safer in designated woman spaces, because those spaces are deeply rooted in inclusion. And like we were kind of talking about this beforehand. I think we'll touch on it more, but it's like we live in a patriarchal society, and it's like men, I feel like, punch down at women so much, and that it's like women have this opportunity right now. Like there's another gender minority, trans people, and like let's break the cycle. Like we don't need to keep punching down. Like we can, you know, break that and like bring up. And so that's why, yeah, I just feel really, really, really honored to be here, and like in a space with women that like are willing to have these conversations and come and listen to this panel. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah.
What about for you? Do you feel like queerness has like super impacted your relationship with sports?
Yes, I would say. I'm thinking of the Megan Rapinoe quote that's like, you can't win championships without gays. That's science. You guys heard that quote? It's such a good quote, and it just speaks to like the queerness of sports. I think we're touching on it, right? Because we're talking about the way sports gives us gender freedom from a really young age. It gives us this like elusiveness of however you identify, the amount of people in this room who've played sports, who've just gotten that space to be more free, to maybe be a little less gender policed, even if you're just a cis woman. And so in that way, sports is just, it's what you're saying, you can't untangle the parts of who you are. So showing up as a queer person, as a Black woman, and now as a trans binary person, you can't peel off the layers, right? I can't take this part of myself off and walk in a room. I can't just be a Black woman one day. I can't take off my gender the other day. I can't take off my sexual orientation one day. And so, yeah, they're so deeply intertwined. And the parts of me that I'm thinking about that have like, I've been better and the best at my sport when I'm like the most fullest version of myself.
Yes.
And so when I am the most out, and like even I'm remembering after my Mike.com article, I think that was in like 2018, and I talked about being a sexual assault survivor. And that was my all-star year. Like I did this really difficult thing that for me, I needed to tell that story. Like I needed to not carry the burden and the shame and all the weight that I was holding as a survivor. And so boom, like, you know, it is math, but it's not directly, but there is a excuse me, correlation between like being our fullest, most whole versions of ourselves. And I'm an all-star. And then I'm coming out in 21 after I had top surgery of just like, for me, I don't want to carry those burdens in silence, especially as a public figure. It's like, I want to show up and just be like, this is all of me, like, love it, hate it, take it, leave it, but like, I'm here. And that's made me, I think, perform in a way that I wouldn't be as good, and I wouldn't play as free and with as much joy. I wouldn't be as good of a teammate. I wouldn't be as good of a player, a member of my family, of my society, if I was not showing up fully, and if I didn't have the space to show up fully. And
Absolutely.
so in that way, I think queerness, I mean, it's also just like, queer people are cool. Like, we're amazing. It's
We
so
are
like,
cool.
to be a queer person in sports, it's like, yeah.
It's fun. I went to the WNBA All-Star game this year, and it was like being around the gayest, tallest forest.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I was.
That landed, yeah.
I mean, truly. You know exactly what the hell I'm talking about if you're laughing, because you're walking in there, you're like, I'm around a million queer trees. I feel so safe and good. But you know that the WNBA All-Star Game is such a joyful experience for that. I think the WNBA has like come forward so much and really repping its queer players, and you definitely are getting that with women's soccer right now. And it feels like sports are becoming, at the same time that we're having these massive conversations, sports are really becoming a safe place for queer people to celebrate themselves and each other, which is always why I think then people come out of the woodwork to try to take that away. And one of the things that I really appreciate about ESPNW having us here today and including us in the conversation is that every woman here knows what it's like to feel disempowered or to feel talked down to or to hear no simply because of their gender. And sports don't have to be that way. And they don't have to be that way for trans players either. And the wonderful thing that we have today, the reason why this feels so magical, even though it's truly 200 degrees, the thing that makes us feel magical is that we have community. And that solidarity of community makes us much harder to turn down. And so we appreciate being included in this massive feeling of solidarity today. It really does mean a lot. You have, clap for me.
I know.
Clap for me. It's like 100 little fans. Layshia, you have a foundation that you started. And did you start this foundation after you got top surgery?
I did, yes.
Tell us more.
So I had top surgery in 2021. So I did not want my boobs anymore. I was like, they need to go. And through the process, I learned that like access to medical care is so difficult for trans folks. And I'm someone who has health insurance. I have dual incomes. I live in the Bay Area on properties. It's like I'm of certain class level. And still, like the process was so difficult for me. And finding a surgeon and actually affording the surgery, even with health insurance. And so much like my journey, when I go through something, I'm like struggling through it. I get to the other side, and then I'm like, if me with all of these privileges is affected this way, like how are so many other folks navigating this space? And so it was just through my personal experience that I partnered with my brand partner Adidas to launch the Layshia Clarendon Foundation, which is sole mission is to give trans folks access to healthcare. And so we've partnered with a local group out in Oakland who offers wraparound services for trans folks, and then we're just giving them money. So like, you want to have your top surgery, like here's the money you need, and then the organization actually is supporting them in all the other ways that they need. And so it's been a really cool, direct way to see people's lives be affected.
That's really, really cool. That's exciting. Congrats.
Thank you.
You both, we all know what it's like to see, queer representation for the first time and get to kind of become ourselves. What advice do you have for young athletes that are coming up now, especially the queer ones?
Ooh, you gotta go first.
Oh man. Someone said to me one time, and it's like just really stuck with me. It's like, it's something like, when you were born into a world where you don't fit in, it's because you were made to help create a new one.
Oof.
And I was like, wow. Like whenever, like, I feel like I just always go back to that. And like, we are different. We're all so different. It's like, what cis versus trans, that's just one little aspect that makes us all different. But like, if you can like harness your difference and like make, your message and like just, I don't know, I feel like that's it right there. And like it's gonna be hard and it's gonna be such a journey, but like there are people who will celebrate you for your differences, and that those differences might like ultimately become your superpower.
I love that.
I love that.
I think mine would be like find your people, like find the folks who like love you, support you, have your back no matter what, and how important it is, whether that's, you know, a teacher, a teammate, a classmate, an aunt and uncle, like your sister, whoever those people are, like find your folks and make sure you have like a strong knit community around you. Because when the, you know, hate does come, it's getting better with queer people in sports. I think really the conversation right now especially is like trans folks in sports and how much just volatile, hateful, like disgusting rhetoric that is being spewed about trans folks in sports right now. And so one, I would say if you are a queer athlete, you do have a duty to make sure that your sport is safe for trans and non-binary folks, like everybody. So in that same way we ask like the straight person to be an ally to queer people, I think queer folks have a duty to be allies to trans and non-binary folks and to not let people in your sport say, you're kind of hearing the Not in My Name campaign right now of not letting people who are using your womanhood as a way to exclude trans folks from playing sports. So it's kind of that thing you're saying, like, we don't have to let it keep punching down. We can stop it. And then I would say to trans and non-binary people, like, I'm really sorry this is the world you inherited. I deeply, deeply am for young trans folks right now who, like, the 6-year-old, the 11-year-old, the middle school player who, like, just wants to play soccer, like, who probably the percentage of folks who will never, ever become a professional athlete is so big. And I'm sure many of us have played sports in here, and just the values that we got from playing, from belonging, from competing, from learning how to deal with conflict, so many valuable things that we learn from sports that people right now are like being excluded, like children, just kids who like want to have fun. And so I am deeply, deeply sorry that like this is the mess that you are in right now. And I would say we are fighting like hell to not let that be the world that you have to keep growing up in. And
they can see that.
And they can see that. So that's what I would say, like, we are, look to us, look to the folks who are out there who are like, no, we're actually showing you what's possible, right? Like, when people are like, trans folks can't play sports, and I'm like, I'm literally existing. Like, you can't tell me that we can't, right? Like, it's like kind of funny to me in that way. When like, you can't be either or, and I'm like, I'm literally saying I'm neither and I'm both, like, and I'm in the WNBA, so like, make it make sense, right? Like, I think that's why our existence is literally so powerful, that we exist and we play in our sport right now, because we are showing people from young to old, people who have lived beyond us, who never had the opportunity, right? Who's the trans person or the woman who like couldn't play before Title IX? People like, history is not that far removed. Like, I think we are the walking models of like what is actually possible. And I think that's what's so beautiful about us just existing in our sports.
Well, and we all know that, you know, like an aspect of sports is, you know, winning championships, and it's all this like personal achievement. But the reason that we love sports so much is not because of the one chip that happens a year. The reason that we love sports so much is because of the community, because of the relationship we get to have with our bodies and our minds, because we play sports, because of our teammates, because of our coaches. And so excluding people from that feels like a kind of particular act of cruelty. And I don't know that we think about it in those terms. And sometimes we have, you know, conversations about what it means to have more testosterone. Well, I think it's important to say at the ESPNW summit that the most testosterone a woman will ever have in her body is when she's pregnant. So we need you moms to be Duncan. Okay? I need all you pregnant mothers to be putting up your personal bests, okay? What are you squatting when you're pregnant? 3 months in, I want an overhead of at least 150. You know what I'm saying? Let's hold each other to some better standards. Okay. I've got a blanket question for you that I like to ask, because I think sometimes when we talk about these things, it can feel so heavy, but actually queerness to me is a deep personal connection to joy. So what is something that has recently brought you joy? And don't make me cry. It's so fucking hot.
Like, well,
I'm like, I've got water dripping down my back. I don't need it on my face. I'm sorry for cursing, Mom.
Oh, no, you go.
What's something that's brought me joy recently?
Recently, yes.
Okay, so recently my gender has been bringing me so much joy.
Awesome.
I've, like, in the last few months, started wearing more girl clothes again, which is, like, I'm, like, sitting up here, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm wearing a dress on stage. Like, I have to keep my legs closed. Like, it's a whole thing, right? Like, for so long, I wore masculine clothes. And, like, I'm just in my flow and vibe of, like, I'm a non-binary person. I'm gender fluid. But after, like, having top surgery and really, like, settling into my body, I've started to embrace in a new way, like, what that means and, like, feels like. And so, like, feminine clothes don't feel foreign to me anymore. For so long, they were, like, attached to my dysphoria. It was like, oh, my God, it's girly. Like, nah, like, you know, I'm trying to be, like, I got to keep it masculine. But, like, I started to wear more girl clothes, and, like, the way it falls on my chest feels good. And so lately, I've been in this sweet place of, like, wearing a dress or a skirt to an event. And I'm like, holy shit, like, this is cool. Like, this is what's possible when we are free, right? Like, in our bodies, when my gender feels good. This is, like, what gender euphoria feels like, not only, like, dysphoria. And so I've just been out here living my best wild life. And I, like, have this joke. My wife knows it. It's like, I became a boy to become a girl again. And it's, like, this weird, like, that's my gender if you asked me. It's, like, I don't know how I had top surgery and then I like dresses again. So it's like, it's just so cool and beautiful to see the way like gender can be like whatever we want it to be. Like this freedom is what I want for like all people. It's what I want for cis people, for trans people, to just be like to put on clothes and move through a space that like feels good in your body. And so what's brought me joy lately is wearing this cute little dress on stage.
And it looks nice.
Though, the
and
airflow,
it looks nice.
The airflow is
because I don't have any airflow right now. Nikki, tell me what's brought you joy recently.
Oh man, I had just a phenomenal summer season, and like I won my first national title, and yeah, but like I love that. So basically, our USA's is in July, and then in August we have a World Championships for track and field, and USA's is a lot of pressure. It's stressful because the top 3 in each event make the world team. So you don't know if you're on the team until you get first, second, or third. And so that race, like, I'm so nervous. There's so much on the line. And I walk out into the stadium and I look up in the crowd, and the first thing I see is like someone holding a trans flag. And I was like, I don't know about you, but we were talking like we get nervous, and my nerves are the most nervous those 5 minutes right before the gun goes off. And seeing that flag, I was like, I'm not nervous at all. Like, let's go, And it just brought me so much joy that like this person brought a trans flag to a sporting event, and like to track and field especially. Like there's a lot of laws against like, all sports, but specifically targeting trans women in track. And it was just like, I don't know. I was like, it doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't matter if I get dead last, top 3, or win the whole thing. Like that's it right there. Like, and so, yeah, I ended up winning, so that was cool.
Community is everything. Thank you so much, Susie, for setting this up. Thank you so much to espnW. Thank you both for being here. Thank you all for listening. It means a lot to have you behind us, and so thank you all. I hope you go inside at some point today. Appreciate you.
I just fangirled. How are we doing? Are we hot? Are we like needing the fans? It's getting really hot. Hopefully everyone's drinking water or whatever else is in front of you. Totally had a fangirl moment, and I hope we all enjoyed what we just got to experience. That was enlightening and heartwarming, and I learned a lot. And I'm gonna learn so much more now. Are we all familiar with the concept of power talks? They're 10-minute or so presentations by like some of the leading voices in the sports industry and beyond. We've got a fantastic lineup for us. We're going to start today with Carolyn Braff. She's the head of Gatorade brand strategy. Yep. And Gatorade's Women's Advisory Board. So in her time, she's developed brand strategies. Just a few things. Gatorade Thirst Quencher. Heard of that? Gatorlight. Gatorade Fit NG0. Today, she's discussing creating a blueprint for brands and how they can innovate for women without shrinking it and, wait for it, pinking it. Please, Carolyn, please come to the stage. Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. It is so awesome to be back in Ojai. What a beautiful day. I also understand that I am in this like after lunch lull. So if at any time during the next 10 minutes you need to get up and do jumping jacks, you are welcome to do that. All right. So join me as we talk a little bit about innovation, and innovation in particular for women. So as we think about brands that have thought about the best way to innovate for women, there's a lot of horror stories that we can all come up with. So love my family brand here, Lady Doritos, run through the nation a few summers ago. And then we all want to thank that individual at BIC that decided that pens needed to be very specifically made for women. So it's easy to come up with the horror stories, right, the things we're going to poke fun at, but it's much, much harder to think of a really good example of brands who have thought about women and truly innovated for women. To figure out how Gatorade fits in here, let's take a big step back. So as many of you may know, Gatorade was invented by Dr. Robert Cade at the University of Florida in 1965. Dr. Cade was a kidney doctor, and he specialized in understanding how carbohydrates and electrolytes work within the body to provide hydration. Now, it just so happens that Dr. Cade was working with the men's football team at the University of Florida, and not with, say, the ladies' track and field team or the ladies' tennis team. And because of that, the history of our brand has skewed male. One coach recommends Gatorade to a buddy of his, who's probably another male football coach. Then Gatorade is seen on the sidelines of the National Football League in the dunk, and voila, the rest is history. If you come back to today and you look at what happens with men and women being active, women today, on average, are far more active than men, but in part because of our brand's skewed history, they drink a lot less Gatorade. So that brings us to two problems. One is a big societal problem. Women are far less likely to think of themselves as athletic or define themselves as an athlete versus men. And then from a Gatorade perspective, my business problem is they drink an awful lot less Gatorade. And that consumption gap between women and men is worth hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Now, as a marketer and someone who loves innovation, what a great challenge, right? Create the next great product from Gatorade that is going to appeal to women. But as someone who loves this brand, I refuse to be the person that creates Lady Gatorade. I won't do it. So how do we solve the problem? What do? Let's start where Gatorade started, which is with the science. Lucky for us, we have 25 PhD researchers on staff at the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, so we started with them. Tell me what it is that women need at that moment of competition. As it turns out, the way muscles work in the body has nothing to do with your gender. What women need at the moment of competition when they're working hard is exactly the same thing as what men need. I'm going to say that again. The way muscles process carbohydrate for men is exactly the same way muscles use carbohydrate in women. So what women need when they're working out hardest and that moment on the pitch is carbohydrates and electrolytes. They need Gatorade Thirst Quencher. Now at rest, however, that's when you do see some differences. So women are more prone to low bone density, we're more prone to stress fractures, and we tend to consume less fuel overall than men. So at rest, when the game's not on the line, we need more vitamins, we need more calcium, we need more vitamin D. So the science is super clear. When you're talking about performance at that moment of competition, when everything matters the most, you need carbohydrates, you need electrolytes, you need Gatorade Thirst Quencher. At rest, women are going to need more vitamins, and broadly, we need more fuel. So what women need is clear, but what women want is very different. Women set trends when it comes to health and wellness. Women hold the purse strings. Women do a lot of shopping in this country, and broadly, what women are showing us with their shopping behaviors is they're walking away from carbohydrates entirely. They don't want sugar, they don't want added sugar, and they actually don't want calories. They're trying to reduce their caloric intake overall in order to lose weight. Now, put a pin in it for a moment that is entirely antithetical to improving athletic performance, and just think about what that means for our brands. When you look at a broad survey of shoppers, half of women, 48%, are avoiding carbohydrates entirely. That number for men is about 1 in 3. So I have a problem. When my brand is centered on delivering the carbohydrates that I know women need in order to improve their athletic performance, but women are telling me they don't want those things, what do? Do we just take all the carbs out, because that's what women are telling us that they want, but I know that won't improve their performance? Do we give them what they want, even though I know that's not what they need? Do we just say the heck with it and make it all pink and see what happens? There has to be some middle ground there, right? And so what I have been able to do in my 10 years at Gatorade is launch some incredible innovations that I'm very, very proud of. But the thing that I am the most proud of is this product called Gatorade Fit. So I want to tell you a little bit of the story of how we used all that information to create what became Gatorade Fit. Yes, it's my favorite product because I think it tastes the best, and you guys should pull it from the ice barrels and try it while you're here. But it's also an incredible example of what brands can do when you put women at the center of your research, when you stay focused on science, and you leverage your brand heritage to move the needle forward. Back in 2021, we had just launched Gatorade Zero. Gatorade Zero quickly grew to $1 billion business for us. All the electrolytes that you need with zero sugar. The problem, however, was we had a small but very growing population of consumers, mostly led by women, that were saying, thank you for this, but you still have artificial colors and artificial sweeteners in that product, and that means it will never be for me. That group of consumers is chronically dehydrated, and they feel like they have to compromise on something. They're usually compromising on taste, right? They get a product that kind of tastes murky or bad, or they have to throw what they want out the window and still leverage those artificial colors that they're trying so hard to avoid. So we went looking for an alternative source of electrolytes that would help us deliver on what we knew this group of women were looking for. They needed functional hydration that has to taste great, makes me feel like I'm doing something healthy, and has an ingredient line that I can pronounce. Luckily, within the PepsiCo family, we have the Tropicana brand, and the Tropicana team was doing some amazing research on watermelon juice. Watermelon juice, as it turns out, is a great source of potassium. When you combine that with some sea salt, you can deliver the exact right blend of electrolytes to replace what you lose in sweat. Because watermelon juice has a natural sweetness to it, we didn't have to add any artificial sweeteners over the top. Our R&D team did an awesome job of getting us these 7 amazing flavors. And then because of what we know about what women need at rest, we added some of those additional vitamins that we knew that they would be looking for, and 100% daily value for them. We also know that watermelon juice has lycopene naturally occurring in it that gives it this kind of light reddish color, but consumers shop by color. If any of you can name the actual brand name of the blue Gatorade, first drinks on me tonight. So close, but no. Glacier Freeze, close. So yes, consumers shop by color, right? And so what we wanted to do, knowing that all these flavors were going to be the same color, because they all have that lycopene in it, that light red color, we put this full sleeve label on the product, so when you get to the shelf, you can still shop by color. We were super confident the product tasted great, felt really, really strong about how we're going to go to market with this. The next question we had was, who do we want to tell this story for us? Right? We have a long history and heritage of working with male athletes, Michael Jordan, the NFL. We wanted to do something different with this product launch. And so we sat down with consumers, mostly women, and we said, hey, this product's going to be called G-Fit. What does fitness mean to you? How do you describe fitness? What are the activities that you do? What are the people that you watch when you're interested in fitness? What does fitness mean to you? And what we heard loud and clear was, it's not the intensity of the NFL occasion, right? I think about yoga, I think about spinning, I think about jogging or running, and I think about people that look like me. And so we brought in a few new faces that we'd never worked with before. We signed the incomparable yogi, Jessamine Stanley, Peloton instructor you may have heard of named Cody Rigsby, and then we extended our partnership with Sydney McLaughlin and asked her not to show up the way she does in our very intense thirst quencher commercials, but she could take the intensity down a little bit and show us what is it like to go on a jog with Sid. This was a tough sell to leadership. They were not used to us coming to the table with athletes that look like this. They were used to us coming to the table with NFL players. And so for us to say, no, this is going to work because it has to be different. If we try to tell that same story that same way, we will end up with that same outcome, which is women saying, Gatorade brand, not for me. We wanted to show up in a different way. And so we were able to get them there and say, let's try it, let's roll the dice. And I'm really proud of the way this communication strategy came to life, leveraging these athletes in a different way, really leaning in with women to say, we hear you, we're here for you. Here is something that's very, very different. One thing that's critically important as we did all of our research on women was that women are not just one thing. Yes, women are athletes and they're exercisers, but they're also gatekeepers and trendsetters. They're heads of households, they're chauffeurs, they're chefs, they're lots of things. And it is not our job to tell them what to do. It is our job to give them lots of choices to pick from and to inform them the best that we can as to what is in all those choices. And so when they get to the shelf, they can decide, do I need a product today for my performance? Great, that's Gatorade Thirst Quencher. Do I want something that feels more like fitness and wellness? That might be Gatorade Fit. And if we do our jobs right, when they get to that shelf set, they'll have everything they need to make an informed decision without us telling them what exactly they need. So the Gatorade Fit story, I'm super proud of, but it can't be just a singular story. It can't be the end of a chapter. It has to be the beginning of a new narrative for how our brand comes to life. The first 60 years of the Gatorade brand have really been rooted in that history of performance with football players, right? It's been all about how do we improve that athletic performance on the field. The next 60 years of Gatorade are going to be about athletic wellness. How does my body feel? How do I make myself feel like I'm doing something good for my body? How do I hydrate myself even when I'm not on the field, even if I'm not sweating? And so we've started to come up with this much broader line of products, really with women at the center, to say, these are all the choices that we're going to create for you. It's now up to you how you want to leverage these. And innovation for us in this instance was a product, but innovation shows up in lots of places. It's the way you think. It's the pronouns you use when you open a meeting. How many of you say, hi guys, when it's all women around the table, right? It's thinking creatively to solve a problem. And so as you think about the ways to innovate for women and keeping women at the center of your thinking, you have to push the envelope, not just in the thing that you're working on right now, but all the ways in which you think about that thing and all the people that you bring along to give a safe space for women and men at that table to challenge the status quo. Now, I'm not good enough to do this by myself, and we don't want this initiative to stop with one person or one product. So I have been lucky enough to be able to establish the Gatorade Women's Advisory Board, which we started 3 years ago to help us start to close that consumption gap with women. This board has done that. They've helped us move the metrics all in the right direction, having more women say, yes, Gatorade is a brand for me, ultimately drinking more Gatorade. But they've done a lot more than that. They've opened our eyes to new partnerships, new people we should be working with, other types of athletes that we should consider athletes, and then new ways to tell those stories. And it is incredibly humbling to have this group of people be willing to pick up the phone and take all of our phone calls. It's also really useful when Sarah Spain tells you what she thinks about once a month. You know it's going to be honest. But this advisory board model is something that you can take with you no matter where you work. I would imagine there's people at the table with you right now who could be the start of this advisory board for you. A group that you can call who will give you support, who will challenge you, but who will help you stay on that path towards keeping women at the center of everything that you do. So, as you think about how do we innovate for women without shrinking it and pinking it, 3 key takeaways for you. The first, do not shrink nor pink anything. Do the work. Understand what women want, understand how that's different from what women need, and understand how you can meet them in that opportunity space in the middle. Number 2 is get women to a seat at the table and surround them with really strong women and men who will help them raise their voice and make sure that they are always heard. And number 3 is find your own personal advisory board. Sarah Spain might not be available, but I sure am. Start with Sarah. Start with the people around you today. I would imagine on this lawn, watching on this Zoom, are some of the very people that you would want to join this board and help you in your fight, whatever that fight is, to put women at the center of how you innovate. We can start today. Thank you very much.
I hate to admit how much I fall into some of the categories that she talked about at the beginning. Like, how many of you play tennis? How many of you golf? How many of you run? In a single day, have you ever referred to yourself as an athlete? Should we? Maybe we should. All right, next up, Shelly Pissarra. She is the Executive Vice President of Global Insights at Wasserman, and her team is tasked with executing strategic frameworks that identify new areas for growth for their partners like Nestle and PepsiCo. Today, she's going to introduce a new look at how we can do better and how we cover women's sports. Also, apparently we grew up in like the same town. So please welcome Shelly.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Man, it is 20 degrees hotter up here, and I was smoking down there. So good to be with you all. I am so excited to chat with you about women's sports and the coverage thereof, therein, there around, on all the mediums. So up until now, we've been talking about this number 4%, right? The last handful of years, anywhere from 3.5% to 5.5%. We settled in on 4. Decades worth of studies done in the way that media was planned, distributed, consumed. And a lot has changed since then. So let's dive in. We are going to move from the shadows to the spotlight, and I'm going to tell you what the new numbers are today. In partnership with ESPN Research, we had the privilege of diving in and doing a very robust piece of work that helps us really dig into where we stand today and where we need to go moving forward. Let's just stop for a minute. What a time in women's sports, right? What a time in sports. The fact that this is last week, Game 4 in New York, whether you were there in person or watched it at home or streamed it or were following it around while you're on your phone, who knows, you were doing what you could to be a part of what was happening with the Liberty and the Aces. That venue was on fire. But we had tons of ways to engage. We had the game itself. We had all the commentary in and around it. We had Elle dancing up a storm, Elle the mascot, by the way, which I tried to find a video and get approvals to get it in here in time, and I just couldn't get that done. But the point being, everything has changed since we really started tracking this. And the growth and swell in what's available for coverage, as well as where fans are looking to engage, has changed. So we said, you know what? We've got to look at it a different way. We've got to, kind of reskin this cat, if you will, and say, where do we stand today and where do we need to go? And you know what? It's not to say that there's anything wrong with the 4%. The 4% served us really well up until now. Up until this point where since this morning's session on selling women's sports, there's a rallying cry around, it's not just about growth, it's about scale, right? And it's about investment. It's about us all diving in and working together. So what do you guys want to know? Do you want to know what the new number is? It's 15, okay? 4 is now 15. 15% of sports media coverage is on women's sports. That's over triple where we were. So yes, okay? There's more to the story. I'm not completely doing cartwheels, but this is really good. This is really good. Even better, 20% by 2025. Okay, so if we stay on track, putting inventory into the system and keeping the distribution models rolling the way that they are today, 20% by 2025. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's talk about how we got here. So what did we do? A lot. I am so blessed and fortunate to have partners at ESPN Research, as well as my team led by Amy Johnson, who will work with Sarah Lavielle in a breakout session after this to kind of go through all the ins and outs. It's actually 1.2 billion lines of data we looked at. They looked at, I got to see once in a while. I just have the privilege of coming up here and talking to you all about it. But 1.2 billion instances of coverage across linear, streaming, social, and digital. And not just social in terms of conversation, but going out and doing searches in and around keywords and topics that really reflect the entire ecosystem of women's sports. Really understanding the state of digital publications in line with linear and how digital and social work together. And then obviously, kind of the explosion of streaming that frankly happened at the beginning of this, where we started this in 2018, and kind of following the journey of streaming throughout. So back to the good news. How do we get to 15%? That top line, it's great when you can actually see the chart. You guys can see this, right? Okay, that top line is red. The red dotted line, that's streaming. Streaming has the most share, 27% of streaming coverage is dedicated to women's sports. The big fat orange line going through there, that's your 15, your average, where we end up in 2022. Social, the blue rocket, on its way, right, at 18.5%. Then green is digital publications, and the bottom black line is linear. Linear started at 3.3 and ended up at 5.7, almost double. I think a lot of us thought linear was going to be dead a little bit sooner, right? Or dying faster than it is. It's actually not dying at all right now, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. So taking another click into this, the growth rates kind of in these mediums are really, really interesting. You can see that streaming line across the top again. I mentioned during the pandemic, streaming really took a hit, lost 10 points. But they didn't have content, right? We all went through a bit of a content void there. We were all chasing everything. I think Sarah Lavielle said to me, it was like we had to get to the bottom of Netflix and just see what was there. Like, could we actually clean Netflix out? And that wasn't all women's sports, right? So they lost some points, but have actually kind of brought their way back to a 27 share. Social is just a juggernaut. 22% annual growth rate, right, since 2018. Linear's next in line there at almost 15%, 2018 to 2022. Again, starting with a 3, but ending up at almost 6. So if you think about this, we were looking at that 4% number, which again was based primarily on linear, social, and a bit of digital, and we didn't have all this context. Where people are going and where distribution is happening is really, really important for us to understand this whole picture. So now you can see kind of where the growth is coming. So I mentioned social is leading the way. Social is leading the way because women athletes and women's sports as an industry are really good at it. You know why? Because they had to work really hard to drive interest, drive engagement, find ways to engage with their fans. I think we've talked about this for years. At times, it's hard to be a women's sports fan. You got to figure out where you're going, what you're doing. It's not all just laid out on a silver platter in front of you. So several years ago, Megan, really being out in front of equality in pay and having tons of conversation in the social space, was kind of one of the biggest, call it pops, here. It's in and around women's sports. Right-hand side, the last several weeks, conversation has grown and evolved and kind of gone back to the center, probably where we want it to be. It's about the sport. It's about attendance. It's about breaking records. Then, now, we're really good at it, and we took everybody with us, right? So this is fantastic. Social is going to continue to lead. We'll see the growth come there. It will pass streaming by 2025. So we have to figure out what type of content we want to put here. I don't know if Susie's back out here, but Susie talked about this in the selling discussion this morning. Collaborators, ways to find opportunities to get new content into the marketplace. Social is going to be a great place to do it. And social and digital publications work together. So when I say digital publications, I'm talking about NBC Sports, Sports Illustrated, ESPN, New York Times, things like that. And the conversations really spike in and around major events. So part of this analysis included international events where US teams played abroad. So think World Cup, Olympics, so on and so forth. But you can see the lines are intertwined. The blue is social media and the orange is digital publications, but they support one another. They work together. So what would be great is going forward, we create a compounding effect, right? Coming off of these big moments and continue that conversation and continue to understand that relationship. But moving forward, we need to realize that they support one another and grow together. So let's talk about linear for a minute, kind of the big behemoth, right? 2/3 of folks are still looking to linear. We're all looking for big media rights deals. Those have been coming in. That's awesome. We're getting the distribution in place. But man, linear's crowded. And it's crowded as we bring new teams and leagues and games to the table, into the forefront. But it's crowded in a great way right now. Everything's growing. Look at all these attendance records, viewership records. Things are up. Sports is growing overall. What I was really encouraged by is women's sports doubled in hours available, 5,000 to 10,000, 2018 to 2022, and also in share. So even though sports is growing overall, women's grew disproportionately. Sorry, guys, men's share came down a little bit. It's not horrible. They've had a nice ride there, and they will continue to. But it is a crowded space, more sports for all. As long as we're making a little more room at the table for more women's sports for all, I can be really cool with these numbers. So in the breakout session, we'll talk a little bit more about this. So to get to 20% in 2025, it is going to be social and streaming that will get us there. The numbers don't lie. 18 to 24, 25 to 34, this is where they're looking. And you'll see kind of streaming and social duke it out at that 30% mark. That's great. It's continuing to help us move forward. I think one of the follow-up things, again, we'll talk about this more this afternoon, is how do we make sure we're going to the right places and we're putting distribution exactly where fans are? And do we have enough inventory for it? And you'll see linear and digital continue kind of to truck along, but they're the stalwarts. They've been there a long time. And to continue to see their growth in share of women's coverage is amazing. So I bet you wanted to ask, are we there yet? Is this good enough? Are we at parity? No, we're not. If you put collegiate, D1 collegiate, and professional sports together, the inventory is similar, 48 to 52. 48% women's sports, 52% men's sports. But when you remove college, the numbers change a lot. So those calls to action around more inventory, more scale, more opportunity to be covered really come to light. We're at an 8 to 92 ratio, right? There's some work to go here. We've got all the right people in the room, all the right conversations happening, and a ton of momentum behind us, but there's a lot of opportunity here. So what if there was more professional women's inventory? What happens to that 20? Does that go to 22? Does it go to 25? Does it go to 30? Does it happen in 25? Does it happen in 28? I don't know, but we sure as hell should find out, right? So the call here is, as we build more teams, leagues, expand our seasons, the coverage is going to follow. We have seen it now. 1.2 billion points of data is right behind us. So for every commercial story, we need to go in and build the case. There's now another stack of information that says, listen, we have a commercial model too. We need more supply. We need more professional women's sports, more investment, more teams, and more programs. So my call to action is, let's stay in the work and show them that every bit of coverage is worth it. Thank you.
Paper on the QR code.
That was awesome.
Thank you. I'm all for it. All right, quick story time. When I was this big, I wanted to be in this career because I loved the NFL. And all I wanted to do was work in around the NFL. And the only person that I connected with was Leslie Visser at the time. But now I see on the sidelines coaches, I see women as refs, and I wonder if, yay me, would have chosen this career, or because I saw somebody doing something else in a different way, if I would have gone in a different direction. This next guest is sort of helping bridge those gaps. She is our final Power Talk. Marcia Gay Knight is the founder and CEO of Black in Sports Business. It's an organization that literally connects Black sports professionals across an entire country, Canada. Please welcome Marcia Gay Knight.
Thank you. Have fun. Yes, all that energy. All right, can y'all just do me a quick favor? I know you've been here for a hot minute. Can y'all get up for 1 second? Everybody just get up for a second. We've been here for a while. The sun is hot. I've been in the shade, so I'm really sorry about your experience right now. And just give me a twirl. Everybody just shake it out. This is the last Power Talk. We're gonna just rock it out and have a good old time. All right, now we can sit. Hi, everybody. So, my name is Marcia Gay Knight, as Nicole said before, and I'm the CEO and founder of Black in Sport Business. Yes, we got the intro, you have a bit of an overview. So I want to talk to you today about something super important, and that's the intersection of women of color and women of color in sport. We cannot forget that as we continue to forge forward, that we're creating a foundation that has to be created well in order for the next 25, 30, 50 years to benefit from that. So before I get deeper into this, I want to just clarify a few things for the audience, okay? Yes, I'm Jamaican. And the more comfortable I get, the more my accent comes out. I apologize in advance. So, first things first, because I'm Jamaican, yes, I used to run track. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is, I am Canadian as well, lucky me, but I do not know Drake. So in case anybody wants to ask, that's not a thing, okay? So this is my organization. Obviously, I'm wearing it all the time, Black in Sport Business, but in order for you to appreciate the present, you have to understand the past. I didn't know if y'all wanted receipts, so I brought them. I remember this girl. This girl was a dope chick, right? She was brave, she was tenacious, she was very bold. She wanted to do so many things. She wanted to take life on like that hurdle. She wanted to work in sport more than anything else because sport gave her so many opportunities, and she was so excited about that. This girl moved from Jamaica to North Dakota, okay, and ran track. She was student body president, she was track captain, she was homecoming queen. Y'all didn't know you were in the presence of royalty, did you? Okay, check it now. She just wanted to do so much for sport because that was her fuel, that was what drove her. So she moved to Canada, and it took her 7 years to figure this out. She went to interview after interview, didn't get jobs, didn't get opportunities, went back to school, kept knocking, kept trying. It just wouldn't work. So she ended up at David's Bridal. If anybody wants the wedding dress advice, call me, okay? But she did not give up on sport because more than anything else, she wanted to work in a space that gave her so much for herself and her career. So I remember her. I really liked her. She was dope, like I said before. And then she found an opportunity, and she thought, that's my first full-time job. 7 years out of school, my first full-time job, this is my time. She got into a large sporting organization in Canada, and she's like, you know what, this is my time, I grind, I deserve this. It didn't turn out that well. It was an organization where she was the only black woman in the space. She didn't feel comfortable, she didn't feel like she belonged. She didn't feel like she was capable of contributing well to the space. She got depressed, she would cry every day. She was not great anymore. And she started to feel a little bit dull, scratch that, very dull. And as a result, she kind of like moved away from sport. This girl was the one that went through the struggle in that organization, but she remembered how bad she felt, and she wanted to ensure that no one else that looked like her felt like that. So she does what other broken, depressed people do. She opens a GoFundMe, asks her friend for money. She empties out her RRSP, 401k for the Americans, and she moves to Greece to do a master's degree in Olympic studies. That's what she did, because she wanted to give sport one more chance, because sport was everything to her, and her parents were going to kill her because she ain't got no job and no money after this. So this better work. So she went to Greece, she got her master's, and she came back to Canada. And she found an opportunity working in the Olympics, because she got an Olympic master's degree. And she said to her boss, she's like, I cannot survive another bad environment. It will literally break me. And we had that conversation, and they helped me rebuild my confidence. And they helped me remember I could be that dope girl from slide number 1. Hey, that girl. I like her, she cool. In Jamaica, we say, everybody calls her, she's brand new. In Jamaica, we say new brand. Can you say new brand? Hey, you're Jamaican now, cool. But this girl wanted to make a change. This girl remembered what she endured in those circumstances, and she wanted to do something different. And she wanted to make sure that no one that looked like her did something different. When she was going through the industry, she didn't see any woman that looked like her. She didn't know what navigating through sport was. And she was trying to figure out a way to help other people coming after her to do better than her. And the reason why I'm having this conversation is because I want us to understand the importance it is as we build the industry together to create environments where women of color can thrive and not survive. I survived the industry. What if I got the chance to thrive? How different would I be? So I wanted to just give us a chance to think about some stuff. I want to ask us 4 questions to ask when you want to advance women of color in sport. And these are questions that we can ask ourselves. I ask myself this all the time. It's not targeted to anyone. It's just for all of us to take the chance to think about how we want the world to be for everyone in women of sport. The first question is, hope y'all can see this because it's white. Is that good? Okay, cool. What have I done to help to create an environment that allows women of color to grow and thrive? Have I created safe work environments? Have I given them support? Have I mentored anyone? I saw the mentorship last night. Clap yourself. That's great. What have we done to create environments where these women of color can thrive? A lot of us carry different experiences into this space that make us doubt ourselves, make us doubt our capabilities. And if we don't get into good environments that help us rebuild that confidence, it can be very devastating for us, as I've learned for myself. How have I supported women of color to advance in the industry? We all have access to great opportunities. Have you reached out to someone? Ask someone, how can I help you? How can I help you move forward? What are your goals? How can I help you achieve your goals? There are women of color who don't have access to certain opportunities, and that's just based on what we know. So what are we doing to change the narrative around that? What are people with access doing, giving people with no access to do? I am standing here because someone gave me an opportunity. And y'all like this dress, so I made sure I rocked it for you. But let's think about the different ways we can help women of color to advance and continue to move forward in the space together. Have I taken the time to understand and learn about the experiences of women of color in the industry? We have different experiences. We have different things that help us navigate and have shaped us in different ways. I have had a negative experience, so that makes me a little bit more cautious about approaching certain things and makes me question if I'm capable of doing stuff. So what can we do to help me understand where I'm coming from and give me the tools I need to keep pushing forward? My boss now, she does this all the time. She goes, I know you're not feeling so great. Try it. I have your back. She helps me regain my confidence. And that's why I can stand here and talk to you about this, because she does it. But little things like that, understanding where people are coming from makes a big difference with how you deal with it and how they're able to navigate moving forward. And my favorite question is, when we all get together like this, do we ever ask who's not here? Who is missing? Is representation here in all aspects? Women, we know what it's like to be marginalized. We were born with the not so great statistic. So are we doing enough to make sure that the people who should be here are here, and that we're doing enough for them to feel comfortable in those spaces and showing up as their authentic selves? People who show up as their authentic selves give you their best. If I ever have to hide part of me, you're only going to get a little part of me, and it might not be the best part. So, because you're not coming to my workshop, I'm going to stop right there. If you're coming to my workshop, we go a bit deeper into this. Sorry, guys. Boo. But this is what you're going to expect in the workshop today. We're going to take a deeper dive, bringing awareness of experiences, providing insight and tools, taking a deeper dive. Because understanding how we can help each other move forward is the best way to move forward. So, Black in Sport Business, check us out. We're doing some great work in the industry in Canada. Love to do more work here. But let's continue to forge forward and remember that as we all move forward together, we can all move forward together. Let's not forget anyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcia Gay. That was fantastic. All right. You guys look 6 shades darker because you've been roasting in the sun. So that's the good part of sweating a little bit, right? Hey, I see you, boo. So to our virtual audience, take a little bit of break, go do your thing. Watch, I heard that there's a show or something called Naked Attraction, and I'm really intrigued at what that is. So watch that. Come back at 6:40 Pacific time. We've got our Toyota Everyday Heroes, which I'm really, really excited about. These women are incredible. And of course, a keynote with Sarah Spain and Regina Spektor and an amazing performance. And then of course, let's get ratchet. Let's get ratchet. So to our virtual crew, thank you. We'll see you back here at 6:40 and we'll see you soon.